everyone, it's Jessie, and today's video I am super excited about because we're going to be talking about one of my all-time favorite things to do in any time of pastime, and that is movies. I love to watch movies. Ever since I was younger, my parents never really sheltered me from watching movies, and by sheltering I mean they never really sheltered me from like bad language, type of stuff that usually don't get shown until like 10 years old. And I'm really grateful that my parents didn't shelter me too much. Like, they sheltered me to an extent of like I didn't like horror movies, but I wasn't completely sheltered. Like, I was watching Notting Hill or other adult movies at a young age. So my love for movies pretty much started from a really young age. In case you were born later in this generation, you probably don't know what Blockbuster is. We had a Blockbuster really close to my house, like a 2-minute drive. I miss that store. Thumbs up if you remember what a Blockbuster is, or a video rental store, because those were amazing and I loved going there every single day, every night. Every single night we would usually pick out 2 to 3 movies and we would literally watch at least 1 to 3 movies every night. I have seen lots of movies in my lifetime. I got this video idea from Kaden over at 1000 Books to Read. She made a video showing all her favorite movies. Anyways, I have a ton of movies to talk about with you all. I have at least 25 on here that I'm gonna say, so let's just hop right in. And be sure at the end of this video to let me know if any of the movies I mention are ones that you love, or also let me know what are your favorite movies, because I love movie recommendations if I haven't seen them. And another thing I wanted to touch on, I'm sorry I'm talking so much before I get started, is a lot of people actually didn't know that I'm going to college for film. I'm going to be studying film as my major. Somehow that completely flew out of my mind and I didn't mention that when my college videos, when I started like my acceptance and everything. I don't know how I didn't mention that, but I didn't. So yeah, I'm going to school for film. So let's just get started. I also like to say that I can tell a lot about a person when I first meet them when they tell me their top 3 favorite movies. I always ask that question so I can get a sense or feel or vibe from that person. This is sort of organized and categorized. I will go through my list. I know I'm gonna get mad at myself post editing this because there's probably a lot that I'm gonna forget, but I will probably make more of these videos in the future because I love movies. Okay, so I'm gonna start off with a few of my top 3 childhood ones. That means that these are movies that I must have watched at least like 8 to 30 plus times. It's not like my official top 3, but this is what I could come up with that I remember watching ever since childhood. The first movie is Chaplin, starring Robert Downey Jr., made in the 90s. This is a biopic movie and Robert Downey Jr. plays Charlie Chaplin, and I was a huge fan of Charlie Chaplin when I was younger. I loved watching all of his black and white movies, and so I also was obsessed with Robert Downey Jr., as you will see by the next movie on this list as well. That was a huge favorite of mine and I just watched it recently the other day. And it's so weird when you watch movies when you're younger and then watch them when you're older and you understand so much more the older you get. It's just such a cool feeling that your mind develops and you understand so much more about life and everything. Every time you watch a movie you can interpret it a different way or learn something new. Okay, the next movie on my top 3 is Only You with Marissa Tomei and, surprise surprise, Robert Downey Jr. This movie is about our main character named Faith, and when she is younger with her friends, a Ouija board that she's playing with gives her the name Damon Bradley, which is supposed to be her soulmate. And then it goes forward to later on in her life when she's engaged to be married to a foot doctor, and then all of a sudden this name Damon Bradley floats back into her life, and it's all this big journey about fate and all this stuff and plot twists, and oh my gosh, it is such a beautiful, amazingly romantic movie, and young Robert Downey Jr. is just so swoon-worthy. This movie is like, I could watch it endlessly and never get tired of it. It's usually the first movie I make new friends watch. If you befriend me, we're sitting down, we're having a movie night, we're getting pizza, and we're watching Only You. Literally, I do this with everybody. Favorite movie, I never get tired of it. Oh, it's just so cute, beautiful. Just makes me want to go to Italy so bad. It's weird too because a lot of my favorite movies take place in Italy. And then thirdly, in my top 3 favorite movies is, drumroll please, this should not come as a surprise to anyone seeing my pillow behind me, Peter Pan, specifically the 2003 live-action Universal version with Jeremy Sumter as Peter Pan, and Jason Isaacs as Hook, and Rachel Hurd-Wood as Wendy. Oh my gosh, I watched that movie religiously as a child. This movie was the first movie I saw in theaters when I was 3 years old. Pretty sure my parents think it is. This movie means so much to me. Pretty much Jeremy Sumter was my first ever childhood crush, besides Haku from Spirited Away, but we'll get to that later in this video. Oh my gosh, I could watch that movie 1,000 times too, and I know every line, and it's just so beautiful, and I had repetitive dreams about it as a child. They were very great. Along with that Peter Pan, it's obvious, and I couldn't not mention the 1953 Walt Disney animated version as well, so I also love that movie, but specifically I have a really special place in my heart for the live live action one. Next up, we are going to talk about films made by Studio Ghibli because I am a sucker for animation. It was really hard to narrow it down because Studio Ghibli makes such amazing films, but I'm going to talk about my two favorites. The first one of them being Spirited Away. For some reason, my brother had showed this to me when I was a child and I really, really loved it, even though it scared the living pieces out of me. If you're 5 years old and watching this, No Face is pretty dang scary. Parents disappearing, that movie is, I don't know how I watched it so much as a child because it's like slightly scary now, but I still love it. It's so beautiful, and Haku was my first like sexual awakening as an animated character. I loved Haku so much. Oh my gosh, he's so beautiful as a water dragon. I have an obsession with dragons too, so that might be another reason why I love this film. And my second favorite Studio Ghibli film might come as a surprise to many people because it's kind of it's not a lot of people's favorite Studio Ghibli film, but it is one of mine, and it is Grave of the Fireflies. One of the reasons this film was made is so it could connect the Japanese youth of the 80s with what their parents went through during World War II. And this movie is just such an eye-opening experience of a movie to watch about war and loss and everything that comes with it. And that leads me to another category that I quickly wanted to mention. These aren't specifically like favorite movies, but if you know me, you know I love World War II historical fiction novels, and that means I also love World War II movies. I really love war movies just because there's something about war, even though I'm not a fan of it. I just want peace in the world. There's just so much at stake and so many deep, heartfelt emotions that they're the most painful and heart-wrenching to watch and unfathomable to me. And that's one reason I love film too, is because something so simple as bringing a story to life can mean so much to somebody and bring so much pain, so much love, so much joy, so much emotion. So just some quick movies that I wanted to mention is anything from Empire of the Sun, Schindler's List, which I recently went to Poland and Krakow and I visited the location. I actually went to Schindler's Museum, which was such an eye-opening experience, and I got to see the last of the ghetto wall in Poland as well. And just to name a few more, there's The Pianist, The Book Thief, I absolutely adore, and War Horse. I am a huge fan of the actor Jeremy Irvine, so I couldn't not put that on this list because, oh my goodness, that one scene with the horse, I cried my eyes out. My dad's like, Jessica, it's okay, it's a horse. I'm like, no dad, you don't understand. I cried so hard watching War Horse. Also just gotta put a little praise in there for Harry Styles. Love him. Dunkirk, you know what I'm saying. Dunkirk wasn't my favorite World War II movie. Like, it was cinematically really cool and beautiful, but I also just love Harry Styles. I really want him to do more acting. Next up, we're gonna move into a category that I kind of categorize as classics, even though some of these may be newer movies as well, but I think they're already kind of staple classics. So one of the first ones I wanted to talk about is A Star is Born, directed by George Cukor, starring James Mason and Judy Garland. This movie is so heart-wrenching and beautiful, and somehow I had only watched it for the very first time about a week ago, and it instantly became one of my all-time favorite movies. I had not previously known that that is what the new Lady Gaga remake is based off of, and then I also didn't know that there was a Barbra Streisand version based in the 70s, which is weird because like I'm going to be a film major, I should know these kinds of things. But I had asked my parents if they had seen The Star is Born, and they're like, yeah, the one with Barbra Streisand, and I was like, no, the one with Judy Garland. And then I started talking to my friend Michelle about it. She's like, yeah, no, nothing can beat Judy Garland. Nothing. It is freaking amazing, and it's one of my favorite classics, so if you haven't seen it, definitely do so yourself a favor and watch it. And like I said, I love Charlie Chaplin and I love The Dictator, and I just think that movie holds such important meaning, especially for the time that it was made and everything that it stands for. Love Charlie Chaplin, so I just thought I would throw that one in here. This one is a classic French film that won many awards, The Umbrellas of Cherbourg. That movie I would kind of compare to La La Land, which is also on this list. We'll talk about it a little later. It's very colorful and bright, and it's a musical, and it's beautiful, and it's so the feels. A lot of the movies I mention involve the feels. So if you don't like the feels, our movie tastes are probably very different, because I'm all about film transcending immense emotion, and that is something that touches me very deeply, and I love seeing that on film. Film is so fascinating to me. I just can't believe these things can be portrayed so well. So yes, I absolutely love that movie, and I really want to rewatch it again because I just watched it like a few months ago. But yes, The Umbrellas of Cherbourg, so good. One of my favorite classic 80s movies is Can't Buy Me Love. love. This wouldn't be a thing if I didn't mention Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Jurassic Park, Jaws. Like I said, I wasn't sheltered as a child, and my neighbor who was the same age as me, we went to preschool together and we would carpool in the morning. I would watch the scene in Jurassic Park and Jaws when the T-Rex comes out, and the scene in Jaws when he's like eating the man, because for some reason my neighbor, she's one of my old best friends, loved watching those movies. So I was traumatized from a young age, but I do love those movies. I actually just rewatched Jaws the other day. I can't even count how many times I've watched Jaws. I love Steven Spielberg, so doesn't everybody though. Another one of my favorites is 10 Things I Hate About You with Heath Ledger. That movie is the ultimate rom-com. It's one that you can sit down and watch and have the best movie night ever with. That movie is just all around rom-com goals. It's perfect. I have nothing else to say. And next to 10 Things I Hate About You, another one of my all-time favorite rom-coms is Notting Hill. When I was in London last, I actually made it a point to go visit Notting Hill, and I did, and I saw the blue door. I'm just a girl standing in front of a boy asking him to love her. I saw the travel bookshop and the apartment. It was just so magical. Oh my goodness. Hugh Grant and Julia Roberts, it is a masterpiece. It is a comedy. It is hysterical. Something you definitely need to see on your classic rom-com list. And also, I feel like this wouldn't be a Jessica movie list if I didn't talk about all of my favorite childhood actors, which would involve Gene Wilder, who was in so many amazing movies from the original Charlie and the Chocolate Factory to Blazing Saddles. I actually just went and visited Vasquez Rocks, which is a bit above LA in the desert, and it was in Blazing Saddles in one of my favorite shows called Roswell. It was also in Star Trek as well, many famous movies and TV shows and such, but it was such a magical experience. I also got to meet Gene Wilder when I was about 10 years old, I believe. He was such a quiet old man, and it was such a dream to meet him and to get his signature and picture. I also love Robin Williams, but Robin Williams, those are another two movies that meant a lot to me, was Hook, because I loved Peter Pan, so Hook held a really special place in my heart. It makes me so emotional because it's just taking the emotional aspect of Peter Pan to the old age that just makes my heart wrench. It turns it up a notch, and bringing Peter back to his childhood. Oh, I love it so much. Robin Williams is just such an inspirational and amazing actor. He was also in a really great movie, what was it called? The House of D? I think that's what it's called. Oh my gosh. I ain't seen no public. I love that movie. I can quote it. Oh, so good. Also Jumanji. How could I forget about Jumanji? That was another childhood classic movie I watched a lot that really traumatized me. Love Jumanji. This may sound really weird, but one of my favorite movies when I was little was Titanic. I watched that movie so many times. My parents didn't understand why I loved Titanic so much. My mom would literally like run in the room screaming and hold up a blanket during the certain car scene so I wouldn't see it. Oh my gosh, it's so funny. I loved it so much, and like I didn't understand the tragedy of it probably that much as a child, and so I rewatched it recently like 5 months ago or something, and I was crying so hard. Kate Winslet, Leonardo DiCaprio. I actually met Kate Winslet in 2014 and I nearly cried because it's Kate Winslet. I mean, how could you not? Continuing on, I know I've been talking forever, but I just really love movies. We only have a few more movies on my list, and I just wanted to talk about more recent releases that have come out in theaters within like the past 5 years up to now. I have like 6 or 7 on this list that I really loved from theaters. I have my movie journal actually sitting right here. This is what I started this year. Oops, it's upside down. It is my Jesse's 2018 movie memories journal, and basically I just have all my movie tickets in here, and I usually write my thoughts. I kind of stopped. I need to catch up. I just put the tickets in. It's just filled with movie tickets, so every movie I see I would put it in here. I was a movie addict with my movie pass. One of the first ones that I really want to put specific emphasis on is Call Me By Your Name, and I know a lot of people don't understand my love for this movie because I don't know, it's not a sensitive subject. It's just something that we don't really get to see on screen, and that's why I think it's so important. And it's not only that, this movie is still such a cinematic piece and just beautiful love story that is so captivating, and it really resonated with my life. My mom went and saw it and she's like, this is something that you went through, and it just meant so much to me, and I could totally see myself in the love story, even though it was a love story between 2 gay men. And I just really think it's because it transcends to anybody, because it captures the feelings of first love, and it's such a beautiful movie. It is about our main character named Elio, who is 17 years old living in Italy, and his parents every summer hold a take place in their home to host an exchange student from a college, and so that brings in our other main character Oliver, who comes to stay with them, and things ensue. I also just have right up here a framed picture randomly of Elio and Oliver. It is beautiful. It's actually in Polaroid form. My friend Michelle got me this print for me and I instantly went and framed it. I absolutely adore it. She gets me so much Call Me By Your Name stuff because she knows how much I am Call Me By Your Name trash. That is like my #1 ship is Elio and Oliver with all my heart. And if you do see Call Me By Your Name, it is also a novel by Andre Osman, although this is my one exception that I actually do recommend reading the book after you see the movie, because the writing style is very different in the way that the dialogue doesn't normally have quotations, so it is such a good book to movie adaptation that it's like word for word, but I think it's easier for you to read it once you see it come to life in the movie. Then you will understand the dialogue more in the book, so that's why I recommend reading the book after you see the movie. And I just recommend Andre Osman as an author in general because he literally has the most beautiful words I've ever read in my entire life. I kid you not, I will be buried with his words. Next movie I want to talk about is Lady Bird, directed by a woman, female director, Greta Gerwig, starring Saoirse Ronan. I absolutely adore that movie. Even though I did not grow up in Sacramento, Sacramento does play a huge part in Lady Bird's upbringing and the theme of this movie. I related to so many different aspects and pieces of this movie as a whole, and it's just such a great little mini piece of a teenager growing up and coming of age story. And the first time I saw it in theaters with my dad in Arizona, we were on a trip. We walked out of that theater and I was just kind of in shock and in awe because I'd never seen a movie like Lady Bird before, and it was so weird for me to have something so relatable, I guess, in a sense. It was something so raw and just different that you don't, and so simple and different, but still powerful to me, and I absolutely love that movie and it means so much to me. Leading on to our next movie, which is La La Land, City of Stars, Los Angeles, with Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone. That movie broke my heart in the most realistic and lovely and heart-wrenching portrayal of love. It goes to show you that things that often seem like they're meant to me don't always work out, even though they could have been meant to be. It's such a powerful movie and the soundtrack is absolutely amazing, which is why I kind of wanted to touch base on The Greatest Showman as well. Now, I understand that that movie isn't the greatest movie ever made, but I saw that movie so many times, and although P.T. Barnum, the real-life circus ringmaster, whatever, isn't a great human being, and yeah, it really sucks that this movie shed a light on somebody who wasn't a great person. That aside, that movie did have a beautiful soundtrack, and there were just some scenes cinematically that I really loved, like the Rewrite the Star scene. That I just could watch that on replay over and over because I just thought they were so magical and cinematically beautiful. But again, it's not the most perfect movie. It did have a lot of plot holes, things that could have been expanded on, like Anne's love story that I felt could have had a whole movie like on its own as well, which honestly it should have been because we shouldn't have made a movie about like you know who. But I still really enjoyed that movie. The guys who made the music, I don't remember the names on the top of my head. That's why I'm putting these two kind of together, even though like La La Land's way up there, Greatest Showman's down here. I just love the music for both of them. The same guys made the music for The Greatest Showman, made the music for La La Land. They are some talented as heck people. City of Stars, are you shining just for me? Okay, Ready Player One. I love this movie. I feel like this movie wasn't talked about as much as it should have been, which really made me sad because I absolutely adored the book Ready Player One. It is full of so much 80s memorabilia and cool things, and since I wasn't born in the 80s, it actually educated me on things in the 80s that I didn't know about. I absolutely loved the book to movie adaptation of Ready Player One. Even though some things were changed, I didn't even care because Steven Spielberg did that movie so much freaking justice. I thought it was so cool that he incorporated The Shining in there. Every time I saw that movie, I saw it in theaters I think 2 or 3 times, but every time I kept seeing it, the more and more I would fall in love with it because I just saw so much freaking detail in it. Like the car race scene, that's a lot to think about, that most of that and everything in that movie is CGI and like computer generated, and the way it's filmed and everything, it blows my mind. And I know it doesn't do that for a lot of people, but for me, I've been slowly seeing more and more detail in movies and very critical of it because I am going in to be a film major, and I just absolutely adore Steven Spielberg and Ready Player One. I love that movie so much. The casting and everything was perfect. I loved it, I loved it, I loved it. One of my all-time favorite directors that I wanted to shine a light on is Guillermo del Toro. So one of my favorite movies, you guys may already know, I've probably talked about it before, is Crimson Peak. Been talking about that movie for a really long time. That set design, the costume design, the aesthetic, the gothic romance, just the gothicness in general. That movie is so stunning. If you just step back from any of Guillermo del Toro's movies and appreciate the set design and the imagination that goes into them, like Pan's Labyrinth or The Shape of Water. Now, The Shape of Water wasn't one of my favorites of his, which I know I will probably get disagreements on because that's a lot of people's favorite movie, but I do love Guillermo del Toro as a whole. He's one of my all-time favorite directors. Some more movies. Hellboy, I love those movies. Unpopular opinion, but I do. But yes, Crimson Peak is one of my favorite stories, and I've always will and want to cosplay Edith Cushing because, wow, those dresses in that movie are absolutely stunning and breathtaking. I actually drove all the way up to LA to go to a museum when they were on a temporary exclusive exhibit one time, and I got to see the red dress in person, and wow, it was so breathtaking. I just sat and stared at it. Love Guillermo del Toro. And lastly, another gay love story, Love, Simon. That is another recent release that I really loved and wanted to talk about because I just think it's so important, and it's so happy that we're getting more diverse romantical movies, and I think it's really important this day and age for people to be able to envision themselves and see themselves in characters, and that is what meant so much to me in Lady Bird and Call Me By Your Name and all these movies that are coming out now and breaking standards and ground in the film industry. Is just makes me so happy, and I just love these movies so much. Anyways, that was the end of my list for favorite movies. I know I probably mentioned a lot and talked for a really long time and maybe didn't make sense because I always lose track when I talk a lot, especially about something I love. Regardless, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Maybe you learned a few new recommendations. Let me know your favorite movie recommendations down below. Like I said, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel down below if you want to see more videos from me, Jessie, and I will see you guys next time. Bye! If you sat through this entire video, I'm impressed. I'm gonna have like 40 minutes of footage to edit now, and I'm very sad about it. Also, how could I forget about the masterpieces that are the ABBA movie, Mamma Mia and Mamma Mia 2? If you know me, I love ABBA with all my heart, and I went to the ABBA Museum in Sweden, and I was in heaven, and I just really love Mamma Mia. And I was so happy with Mamma Mia. Here we go again. Just thought I would throw that in there. My dog's barking. Okay, bye.